Backstage again at the 2022 Iowa City Jazz Festival, getting ready for John Daversa and his small band. You have the small band with you today. And also Tal Cohen, who is also part of your ensemble as well. Welcome to Iowa City again. I guess I should say, well, you've been here for the last week or so in the area doing some things.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm having so much fun being here. So many friends that I have here, and we've been playing the Five Seasons Chamber Music Festival last week in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, I saw one of your things online, your duet with the piano.
Yeah, myself and Tal Cohen was here.
Yeah,
we just
really cool.
recorded a duo project called The Art of Duo, and that album's going to come out in February. So we're.
Why don't we start talking about that?
Oh, right sure.
Tal, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's so giving a bit of a background here. Me and John moved to Miami at exactly the same time. Not on the same flight, but on the same time. I came from Australia, where I've been residing for like 10 years or how long it's been, and then I moved to Miami, and that was John's first year there. And slowly but surely, we kind of connected musically, and in the last I would say maybe 2 or 3 years, we've kind of taken it to a more personal level and decided to really zone in on that kind of connection, and created this duo album, which we're both pretty proud of. And I think it says something that, we're both very proud of it. And it says something that you can't say unless you have a connection, and maybe in a different setting. It's very personal, very intimate, very exposed. And I think, as John would say, the people that are within those frequencies will connect with that,
So are you originally from Australia then?
I was born in Israel,
okay.
And I moved to Australia, and that's why I have this accent that you can't really pinpoint.
That's what I was going to say.
I can see everyone's faces going, where's he from,
It's just how he plays. It's exactly how he plays. Completely unique.
Yeah.
What was the jazz scene like in Australia when you were there?
It's really, really cool. There's some amazing musicians coming out of there, like Linda O and Troy Roberts and many others that are really doing some cool things. And specifically from Perth, Western Australia. It's the most isolated city in the world. It's the airport is furthest from any other airport in the world. So I think there's not that much to do there, so you just kind of practice. That's not true. There's an amazing university there and amazing things going on there, but there's also a lot of time. So,
And just all kinds of great musicians coming out of Israel these days. It's just
Israel,
the Yogev Shetrit we just had yesterday.
Yeah,
and we've got Anat Cohen here, and all the
mine.
Cohens and their families.
Yeah.
And boy, they've given us a lot in jazz so far.
I know,
tell you what.
I know. Yeah.
John, talk a little bit about your beginnings. Your dad actually played with Stan Kenton.
He did.
Days.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, he made a couple records with Stan Kenton. Toured with him for about a year, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a brilliant improviser and trumpet player, and he's still playing.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. So, but I grew up in Los Angeles, where he got into the LA studios there, so he played on all the movies and all the television shows.
Cool.
And when people would come over for dinner, it'd be Shelly Manne and Chuck
too bad.
DeMonaco.
Oh my God.
And I got to. It was I'm so grateful to have been exposed to that element of what it is to be a musician, the creative part and also the business part, because they were also talking about that conductor, maybe they should have done it this way, and next time when I do that, I'm going to make sure that I get double scale, and those things that you have to think about. And also they're talking about we checked out that last Herbie Hancock record, and now just this track here, how he extended the form, and so I got to hear how they think about music and the music business.
And your mom was an educator, and I'm sure you took something away from that as well, being an educator.
Absolutely, yeah. She's a really great educator and musician in her own right. She played many instruments. She played the flute, and got a full scholarship on Juilliard, but decided she didn't want to go. And her main instrument is piano, classical piano player. She also is an incredible actress and dancer, and one of those people that you really hate because they do everything really well. And what I learned from her was that being a creator and being a musician and an artist is something that was really of enjoyment and something that brought people together. And that always stuck with me because it was just such a source of joy for her. And so I want to experience that too with music.
You kind of started working in the 90s back in the day. That's when you first had your progressive big band, which has kind of come back and forth every now and then. Talk about that band that you have.
Yeah, I mean, the big band's always, it's an evergreen project that goes and goes. And that was at a moment where I was coming out of college. I had gone to UCLA, and I was, it's a vehicle where I can write and I can use my skills as a writer to create the music that I hear, and I really have control over that.
Mm-hmm.
And also create a vehicle that sets me up in a way as an improviser that I like to play in. And I also get to collaborate with so many different musicians because there are a lot of musicians involved. And so we played for a long time there in LA, and you know, we played at the Baked Potato in Los Angeles once a month for years. And it was a way that I could really develop the music with the musicians and for the music itself. So I always go back. We always, even now that I live in Miami, I always go back there and do a week residency twice a year at the Baked Potato and other places too. You know, it's definitely a love, and I continue to write for that ensemble. I always will.
And your first big teaching job was at Cal State Northridge. That was 2012, right?
Yeah, that was my first full-time. I was teaching. I was a glorified adjunct professor at USC before that for 2 years. I mean, I taught everything, you know, but for about $2 a class. But that paved the way for me to get a full-time job at California State University Northridge, CSUN, which was a very special time. You know, Gary Pratt and Matt Harris were in charge of that program, and they laid the framework for me to come in and just kind of ignite the fire.
And you had a bunch of other bands around that time too, as well. That you're starting up different bands.
Yeah, well, I had the small band, which I started too, which was kind of the core of the big band, which had Gene Coy on drums and Jerry Watts on bass and Zane Kearney on guitar. And at that time it was Brandon Coleman on keyboard, and also Tommy King. I had 2 keyboard players in the band, and also Robbie Marshall. And so we played once a month at a place called 7 Grand, and we played at the Baked Potato, and we played at the Blue Whale, and we played everywhere else, and we were, you know, everywhere making music, and it's just a very creative period. And I still play, obviously, we're actually going to go, Tal and I are going to go to LA in a few weeks and play a run there, and we'll play with Gene and Jerry and,
cool.
and Zane, and yeah, it's you know, it's family.
When did you start playing with Tal? When did you start hooking up with John?
I mean, John had the small band, and I was a part of that for a while. And John played in my band also, and still does when the budget allows.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah. And other than that, really, yeah, there's been many projects.
Have you been in his big bands at all too?
Yes,
Oh,
played
okay.
the big band too. And then there's been, like, you know, collaborations with other people that, you know, there's been a lot of things.
Yeah, Tal played on the last 2 projects. He played on American Dreamers and
right.
All Without Words. Anything else? I guess the last 2.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course our duo record.
Yeah.
And then you got the break of the Frost School out at Miami. Talk about that
Yeah,
opportunity. You
yeah,
had
that
and
came
what
out of the
that's
blue.
turned out.
I was actually very happy at Cal
What a
State
school.
Northridge,
Wow,
and my life in LA as a professional and as a creative. And you know, they asked me to just come out and interview for that job, and I thought, yeah, it'd be nice to go see some of the people that I know out there and say hello and see the program, and lo and behold, I got there and they offered me the job the day I got there, and it just seemed like a really incredible opportunity to build something different and something new, and you know, so I'm still looking at that vision to complete it, to really create a community where it's a wide open-minded community, and people take care of one another. People push each other to show what creatively is possible, because technically and curriculum-wise, that program is a well-oiled machine way before I ever got there. But then to create a community where we're really pushing the music forward and playing and creating music that means something, that has a mission. You know, I feel like we're doing good work on that front too.
Is Shelley Berg?
Shelley Berg is the dean of the Frost School, and I'm the chair of the jazz department.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's my boss.
Award-winning bands you've put together there, and actually had John Daversa Day in Miami Beach at one point.
Right.
Yeah, there was
Did they have a parade
that's still
for you and
such a
everything?
surreal. We had we were playing a gig, and then the organizer came up to me and said, John, do you mind? I just want you to know there's going to be a proclamation before you start the show. And I said, well, that's fine. What are you proclaiming? And she said, well, you'll see. And so the mayor comes up with this plaque and says, we hereby designate whatever the day is to be John Daversa Day. So I've got the plaque in my office. It makes me look really good.
Oh, yeah. Well deserved, I'm sure. They don't know why.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about some of the projects you've done in the last several years. The American Dreamers project with the DACA students. That sounds like it was pretty special.
It's a very special project, and it's so much larger than any one individual. That project. The idea was that we wanted to bring awareness to more people. The issue of undocumented children that had come to this country and did not have a path for citizenship, and there are all kinds of different stories why they were brought to this country undocumented, all kinds of, different narratives. Like, for example, one child may have come over when they were 3 years old, and their father came on a visa, and then the father just took off and they were gone, and then they ended up going to school, and then they didn't even know they were undocumented until the time when they were getting a scholarship, because they got straight A's in school, and then they went to go get the scholarship and said, no, you can't have the scholarship because you don't have papers. And they're like, what is that? And so my approach with it was to humanize the story and just say, listen, they're real human beings that are right in the middle of this issue, and just, you can make up your own mind about how you feel about it, but just look at it. And so I think it did that. It exposed the issue to more people that didn't know about it. And so we took all themes of America. The musical part of it is that I took, Stars and Stripes Forever and America the Beautiful, and even Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song, and Don't Fence Me In, and these kinds of themes, and Living in America, James Brown recorded, and reimagined them and featured all these DACA recipients that were musicians within the music. So it was a powerful energy altogether.
And you worked with one of my favorite singers, Karen Allison, as we celebrated women's suffrage, the 100th anniversary, the centennial of that. Talk about that project. That was kind of cool.
Another
with her
very
sextet.
special project. Yeah, with Helen Sung, and Karen, and
Allison
Ingrid
Miller.
Jensen,
Yeah.
Allison, just like badass
And Kurt
women.
was, Kurt was
yeah.
part of that as well.
He was. Yeah, he came in and read. I forget what he read. We found all this text of people that were opposed, on the other side of the debate, and he read it, like the consummate actor that he is.
Right.
It was just like boom. He turned the switch and he was on. But yeah, another idea where we were just exposing. We've come a little way since then, and we've got a lot further to go. Because even when women got the right to vote 100 years ago, it was only white women that received the right to vote.
Right.
And it took until the 60s, till we even got a little bit further. And so it's music is such a powerful vehicle to just talk about these things. And in case you hadn't thought about it in a while, here it is. Here it is in front of you.
Did a project with Regina Carter as well. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, she's a badass. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we put together this all-star group with John Baptiste and Harvey Mason, and that record, it was in 2020. We recorded it in December, right before the election was coming up, and so the message with that record was just go out and vote. Just go out and vote. We called it Swing States, and we took music from state songs from different locations, and I reimagined them to play with Regina's voice in mind.
And you did the project with the great Afro-Cuban players, Gonzalo Rubalcaba and Daphne Sprieto, the Bolero project.
Yeah, we joke with ourselves. We call ourselves the Broleros. That was very special also. It's called Cuarentena with Family at Home. And they're all boleros. And the idea of the bolero, I was inspired by Gonzalo Rubalcaba. And he was saying in so many different cultures, in Spain and Cuba and Mexico, they would take these ballads, and the family would break bread together and have dinner together, and then after they'd play some music together. Somebody knew how to play violin, somebody would kind of play some hand drums. Somebody might be able to play the piano, and that's how they bonded together. And I really liked that idea. And so we were about to go record that record, and then the lockdown hit. And so we couldn't do it. And then about the end in June, I called everybody and I said, what do you think? Because maybe we could do this record and it can be all about family, because like it or not, we're all forced to be home with our families right now. And so I was able to write a song for my wife, for my daughter, for my grandparents who came over from Sicily, and all those narratives. And I also included 3 songs that my father had written 30 years ago that I grew up with, and just kind of reimagined them with the mastery of Gonzalo Rubalcaba on drums and Daphnis Prieto, on piano, and Daphnis on drums, and Sammy Figueroa on percussion. And of course his father, Charlie Figueroa, is a very famous bolero singer in the 30s and 40s. And so I kind of brought him back to that space, and we recorded one of the songs that Charlie Figueroa made famous. So these kinds of things. And the amount of gratitude that I feel in that recording, because all these master musicians we hadn't played together. We hadn't played any other music with any other person for a number of months. So it was a very deep experience.
You mentioned the pandemic. It's interesting to hear what the musicians were doing during the pandemic. You're either practicing like you've never practiced before, or you're writing like you never wrote before. Tal, what kind of things were you doing during it? What did that allow you to do?
Well, I was actually very fortunate. So I actually went back to Australia in March 28 or something. And Perth, Western Australia, was one of they had a very strict lockdown there. So by June, July, believe it or not, there was no cases and everything was open.
Oh, wow.
So I was playing all the jazz festivals. I was literally, it felt like I didn't stop.
Wow.
And in November, I went back to the States, and I was like, here we go. This is
now
going
what
on,
am I going to do?
So I was really fortunate. I was there. I was playing gigs. I was practicing. I was with other people. There's still a level of care, obviously.
Sure.
But a lot of it wasn't really what the rest of the world was doing, So yeah, I got to play and kind of, do some things. And when I got back to Miami, it was semi-open, And then very quickly, me and John were like, let's do this. And started playing, and here we are,
Absolutely. One more project that I was very, the All Without Words project that you also did. You've done so many projects. We could talk for hours, but talk about that one a little bit.
Well, that's the project that when Tal came back to the States, he went right into recording that project with us. All Without Words is about the narrative is a father who is the composer of the piece, my dear friend Justin Morell. And Justin's son is on the spectrum of autism, and he's nonverbal. And so the piece is about, you can feel through the whole piece the love, the frustration, the joy, the pain, all of it is in there. And so it's a jazz trumpet concerto for full orchestra and jazz rhythm section. I'm the voice of the child. And what Justin did is he recorded his son kind of vocalizing one evening and singing a little bit, and he was able to extract 2 themes that he transcribed, and he took those 2 themes, and so it becomes a theme and 10 variations after it. It's 72 minutes of an orchestral work, and by the way, we did it during the pandemic. It was no small feat, and we had to record the orchestra in smaller sections to make it work, but it did. And it's one of the projects. I'm proud of all the projects, but I'm so proud of that one. I think it's really just a magnum opus.
Well, I think we could, like I said, we could go on and on, but you've got things to do and things here at the Iowa City Jazz Festival. I want to thank Tal Cohen and John Daversa for stopping by and having a little
Hey,
conversation
listen,
here.
this is the first time that I've been able to play the Iowa City Jazz Festival, and I know the history here, and I know the history with the festival and what it means to the Midwest here. and it's really an honor to be here. And I'm so thankful that that you all invited us to be part of the festival this year. Thank you.
Well, that's cool. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
We
it's
appreciate
amazing,
that.
and the hospitality has been great.
Yeah.
And people really seem to care about this festival, and I also like how it's presented. You know, the street, and it's really cool. Really cool. I love being here.
Well, great. Thanks. We're glad you're happy to be here. You got a beautiful day to play too.
Yeah.
So thanks again, guys, for stopping by and taking a few minutes. And good luck in your further endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.